Welcome, everybody, to the journey of self love. We are in episode 16, and today is part 6 of how to hack your thoughts. Um, One winter's afternoon, I was visiting a tea house, a cozy, charming tea house in New York's West Village. And in the tea house, there were only two little round tables. One was occupied, and so I sat at the other table and I sat alone. And because the place was so small, the two tables were very close to each other. And I couldn't help but overhear the conversation by two young women sitting at the next table. And they were talking about ways to inspire other women. And I was, fascinated. Their conversation really inspired me. And they had no idea that I was a motivational speaker who addressed many of the things they spoke about. So as I sip my tea, this conversation is going on in my head now. Should I say something? It was a moment in time, and I knew if I lost that moment, I may regret it, if I walked away. Or should I not say something? Would it be rude? Would they think I was eavesdropping? You know, at that moment, I had to hack my thoughts. My internal rationale ended with something like, let me say something so later on I won't have any regrets. And I have to let them know how inspired I was listening to their conversation. This was the hack. Carpe diem. I had to seize the day and not live with regret. And that's how I met our next guest, a great influencer with a profound sense of purpose, a French woman who moved to New York for a job in tech, found her purpose in connecting people through a community called Davines. We made a great connection, followed by a few conversations, and then she invited me to speak at one of Davines' women's event at One World Trade Center. That's when I created the crown model. So stay right there. We're excited to hear from Astrid Coupon on ways she can hack her thoughts. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So we are thrilled. I'm thrilled to have Astrid right here in the studio with us today. Astrid, welcome.
Thank
Great to
you.
have you.
Good to see you, Chloe. I love the intro. It just brought me back to that tea house where we shared that conversation, and I remember the spark the spark I felt when I met you that day. So thank you for bringing me back there.
Yeah, that was really nostalgic. I went right back there when I knew you're going to be on, and I'm like, wow, I had a nostalgic moment too. But that's the power of our thoughts.
Hmm.
That's the power to take us back to a moment in time
Hmm.
and recreate emotions and feelings. And so there's so many things that go on with our thoughts and in our mind. And I'm fascinated on the topic. And so, I thought, what are ways that we hack our thoughts? Even sitting that day in the tea house, I was vacillating. Should I say something? Shouldn't I say something? If I said something, would they think I'm eavesdropping? Would they think I'm rude? Um, but I knew, the carpe diem, seize the day. What if I walked away from you
Hmm.
and regretted it? We wouldn't have met. And great things wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thrilled to have you. Um, okay, so do you want to maybe just tell everybody who you are for a quick moment before we dive into our conversation? Just a little bit about you.
Sure. I think you introduced me like I'm French. I moved to New York about 7 years ago now, and to pursue my career in tech. And I joined New York and fell completely in love with the city, but mostly by the talent of women in the city. I remember like using watching Sex in the City in my couch in Paris and thinking, wow, those women are super strong. And coming here, it's better than the show. It's just the connection that women have, and how like genuine they are, willing to uplift each other.
Mm.
And I guess in a way to describe myself, I'm always looking to make new connection and learn from women's wisdom and men's wisdom too. But I find like women have this like easy like way to connect with each other, and that's what happened at the tea shop. Like we connect, right? And we had this very interesting conversations about life. Like I'm all about like very deep, meaningful conversation right in. I don't like the surfacing chit chat. I would talk about the meaning of life in the first 5 minutes, and that's kind of what we did. So um, it's that's kind of a way I guess I can describe myself, and I'm very grateful that to be here and to have this conversation about how to hack your thoughts, because that's definitely a topic that I try to master, and I'm still learning. So
Yeah.
very very grateful.
Yeah. We're all on a journey, and the
Yeah.
journey never ends because every day we have to continue doing it. Um, so think about this. There are times when silence is golden. There
Hmm.
are times when silence is deafening. And
Hmm.
today, I attended an event, a women's event, and someone said, the silence is sad for her. And I'm like, wow, I need to have a conversation about that. So let's get to our topic right now. When silence is golden for you, what are you usually saying to yourself?
I usually I usually see that it's a calming silence when it's golden. It's warm. It's something that you can physically feel. Everything is fine. I'm safe. I'm protected. Um, that's what I think about silence. I'm usually in my meditation room. Well, I have like, TV room, meditation room, just a place where I can be quiet with my thoughts, and I feel like that, everything is fine, that I'm safe, I'm protected, we are breathing, we're fine. That's how I feel.
Yeah. You said you can be in a place where you can be with your thoughts.
Hmm.
And what we also know is that the person we have the most conversations with
Hmm.
is ourselves.
Yeah,
Not
100%.
even the closest person to us, we are talking to as much as we talk to ourselves. So
Hmm.
when we are with our thoughts, we actually a person, and that's ourselves. So a place I can be with my thoughts. Also, you talked about when silence is golden, it's safe.
Hmm.
There's safety. There's no, you're not under threat. And when we're not under threat, there is no stress because
Hmm.
we just can be. Now, when silence is deafening, what are you saying to yourself?
I think it's where you let your when I just let my negative thoughts and self-critic take over, and I usually dwell into all the mistakes I've made. So there's silence, but actually it becomes very loud. I remember, oh, I did this, I talked to this person that way, that's what they're going to think about me. I just let my self-critic be the loudest voice.
Mhm.
That's the part that I need to let at this moment. I usually try to like observe that this is a pattern, that this is the negative, what is it, like negative Nancy,
Yeah.
that's my voice, super super self-critical.
Mhm.
um I guess like a question for you, like when you say deafening, it's when you say the golden, it's like when the silence is good, when you let you in a relaxed place, you're good with yourself, you like you kind of you can let your thoughts kind of like float around. When it's deafening, when it becomes like it's silence, but it's very very hard to it is not like a good moment, right? Because then your negative thoughts are taking over. Is that what you meant by
Yes,
the question? Okay.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's the same thing. You are alone, or you could be with people, but you hear all you can hear is in your head all the things that went wrong,
Yeah.
all
100%.
the mistakes, the
Yeah.
self criticism. And we always, as human beings, there's negativity bias.
Mhm.
We are drawn to what is not going right, and we enjoy being in that place.
Mhm.
There's something, it does something for us to stay in that place. Why didn't I couldn't do why couldn't I do this, or why it's not working out? And we go on, and those thoughts become repetitive. The
Mhm.
more repetitive it is, it then solidifies a string of thinking in our brains or our minds. There's a song, and I'm not sure if you know the movie Toy Story,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So in the movie Toy Story, there's a song called "You've Got a Friend in Me,"
Mm. Right.
and I always think when I'm having conversations with myself
Mm.
that I have a friend in me,
Mhm.
instead of always finding fault in myself. There's
Mhm.
a friend inside. How do I retrieve that friend? How do I get that friend to talk me out of this negative place?
I love that. I usually have that third person. I talk to myself to the third person in
Yeah.
the street in New York because it's New York. You know, they don't really care if the people are talking to themselves, 'cause right? New York. So I love the idea of like the friend in me because I have it too. And I say like, Astrid, you are fine. This is all good. And I just like I do this. I walk and I just have this friend in me talk to myself instead of letting that negative like like telling me all the things I've done wrong. So definitely a way that I hack my negative Nancy. I just like let that friend inside
Yes,
me
yeah,
take
yeah.
over. Yeah.
And I love what you just said. Now, Astrid, you are flying. You are good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which immediately starts lifting you up. When you fly, you elevate and you uplift yourself. Um, okay, so when negative thoughts do go through your mind, what are some things that you actually saying, and how do you hack it?
Yeah. I think I learned this from meditation. Like they say in meditation that you cannot really fight a thought. Like the more you fight the thought, the more, loud it becomes, but by just noticing it and just say like, oh, I recognize that pattern, so I can call them names. I have like a million different people in myself. Like I have the friend in me, I have the negative Nancy, I have the critic. Like there's so many of them that I recognize them. I recognize those patterns and just observing them, be like, oh, here it is again, and just like observing it, to detach yourself a little bit from it. It doesn't become you. You just like notice that this is part of you, and it could be, you talked earlier about like the thinking pattern. You might have like connections in your brain that maybe like wires you to be more anxious. I have an anxious person, but just being like very accepting of them, I think that's my hack. Just like accept them. Oh, here is the little child, the afraid child, the scary child. This is the anxious person. It sort of calms me down because I just sort of accept all the parts of myself.
Yeah. Self acceptance, it leads us to understand ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we are non judgmental with ourselves,
Mhm.
that's how we start projecting to others. So we can accept others the way they are.
Mhm.
We're non judgmental with others. Today, I was with a whole lot of women at an event, and I talked about the woman in the mirror.
Mm.
You're a woman, and you want to, we know the man in the mirror, but when we look at ourselves in the mirror, the heart or the mind or the identity of who we are, what do we see, and who do we see, that's beyond all the negative sounds and noises that we hear in our mind.
Mm.
But I note stopping and noticing.
Mhm. Just, yeah, noticing, acceptance, and then you can see like, okay, like this is me and I can make it better next time, but this is where it is right now. Like
Mm,
accepting the moment. And also in some ways, like you also have to accept like those bad days or those bad thoughts. Like you need to allow yourself to have those bad days or having those bad feelings or thoughts. Just like, okay, I'm just going to take it easy today, and I'm not going to go, I'm a little bit more anxious, and that's fine. We're
mhm.
women, we're going through cycles maybe more than men, so accepting that as well, that you can be like also triggered by something hormonal,
Mhm,
and just accepting it
mhm.
and let it pass, though it's not permanent.
Yeah. So when I want to just talk about accepting those bad thoughts, those bad feelings. Um, how long and what how long do you think we need to be sitting in that place of accepting this is my a bad thought? I'm accepting it.
Hmm.
What works for you? How long do you stay in
Interesting.
that place?
It's an interesting question. I've noticed that in order to counter a thought, I need physical movement. And if I'm like physically like too tired, I need to do like just like, let it go. I feel like usually counter with movement. So if
Yeah.
I feel like there is like the saying when you hear someone you have a fight with someone and the person say like just go take a walk, and the
Yeah.
person takes a walk, and like just the physical movement, like go taking a walk,
Hmm.
maybe sitting in silence, noticing what happened, just like calms you down. So if I'm not able to, after hacking the file, by just observing it, I usually go for a walk, and just like have some sort of physical movement, try to get it out of my system, because you do have like this, I think, like anger,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
or like I don't know like what type of, or like cortisol, what goes up, like there's so many like things just happening in your body, and just by physically like moving it, or the way that you shake it off, like when dogs go for like a little traumatic event and they shake it. I think that's the idea of like physical movement to get the thoughts out.
Yeah, I love that. That is true. Just getting off from where we are and
Mhm.
moving.
Yeah.
It actually feels like we're moving even in our
Mhm.
thinking, or
Yeah.
moving away from how we're feeling that
Mhm.
bad feeling, that bad thought.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you experienced a time when you had to hack a positive thought?
Mm. Hack a positive thoughts in a way that I'm using it to like make it I'm thinking about the for me the hacking the positive thought negative like moment, and you think your life is like blah, 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 like I don't know, like over, you didn't get the promotion, you didn't get like this. Just go back to like those gratitude movement, because you physically can from there like just go to like a happier mood, and it could be the simple things, the people in your life, the oh, I really love my dog. Just like try to like write down those like things,
Hmm.
and um using this like constantly being in that gratitude mindset.
Hmm. And is there a time where you are in that gratitude mindset or that positive place and you find that, okay, I'm now here for too long? I need to move from this place because if I stay here for too long,
Mhm.
I'm going to go down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because you might think like, oh, you always want to be in bliss or like positive, but as it should not like impair with motion, with action. Like that doesn't mean because you're happy where you are that you're not like you should be on the way of progress. It should, it doesn't mean that you cannot reflect on things you need to improve. You can be positive and hopeful, uh, but not stay in that statu quo. Um, it's a difficult question. I'm actually wondering what you're thinking, Chloe, because I'm wondering if you have an example of that to like to make it more resonating.
Yeah. And that's a good question that, that you're asking me. When I've been interviewing a lot of influencers on this podcast, and some people just get it. Some people are like, I don't get that. What do you mean hack positive thoughts? But one of the podcasts that we had, and I asked the question, and the person said, well, Chloe, I'm a dreamer.
Hmm.
And I can get carried away with my dreams. I have so many things going on.
Mm.
Can't achieve all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to say, okay, this is what I want to focus on and move away from that. He says, I have to hack that thought. That's a
Hmm.
similar way that I am because I'm very creative and I have all
Mhm.
these ideas and I could go on an idea splurge, but
Yeah.
then I have to lock it down and say, okay, right, stop.
Yeah.
Moment where you have to stop. Stop with all the, blue sky thinking, the big picture thinking, and come on. What is it? One or two things you want to focus on?
Mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I see like the daydreaming, or like I think there's a whole movement with manifestation, and people spend a lot of time like thinking, feeling, being in that meditation, but not really taking action. Like we
yeah.
are like in the real life, in the physical life, 3D life, we still need to like wake up and do things to like in order to create that beautiful reality that you want. You still need to have that physical effort. I think difficulty maybe is the word, like, or effort. Like you have to, like, when I was talking about like movement and motion and physicality and thoughts, if you're maybe too much in your head and you can be daydreaming and thinking, that's all great, but we're still in the 3D world. And if you're too much there, like you might actually lose what's happening in the real life.
Exactly. That's it. When we're too much in the clouds,
Mm-hmm.
we miss out what's going in the now. We lose out the power of now.
Mm. Yeah.
And the present, the now, comes and goes, and we don't know it's come and gone.
Mm.
So, right. So, there's people are going to be listening to the podcast. And for those listening right now, what is something that you'd like to share with them about how they can hack their thoughts? If you had to give them a piece of advice, what would that be?
Um, I would just go back to what I previously shared, like thinking that you are not your thoughts, first of all. uh, Understand that we are have you were talking about negative bias, like we are like thoughts is just like this chemical thing happening in our brain. We can hack them by just observing it, like being aware of what's happening in our thinking patterns. So maybe starting like by knowing yourself, like doing an inventory of the type of thinking patterns that you have. You can noticing in others. I notice it with my parents, like they're usually very critical. Oh, did you see the food was not good? Like like I think like just notice who you are, notice the thinking patterns, and by just observing it, you are detaching yourself from them, because you're by observing it, you're not them. You're like kind of the detaching, right?
Yeah.
The second one is really like going back to what you were saying with a friend and me, like talk to yourself as a third person, reassure yourself, like look at what everything is going well, like try to like when you are in the situation and you feel like very stressed out in that moment, actually try to like see the bigger picture and realize like my husband actually taught me this, where are you, like physical, I'm here in this room, I'm breathing, it's this time, just go back to that present moment. And then the third one would be like just go hack your thoughts. There is also motion, like physical movement is a big way to hack your thoughts. You cannot, like, sometimes you cannot undo the feeling, the thinking. It's just by doing it and seeing the progress and thinking like, okay, I can actually move from one stage to another by using my legs. I'm just gonna like go and walk.
Hmm. You know what? I'm glad you're bringing the physical movement because you that's a thread throughout. Even though I've heard others talk about it, but that is something that you are really stressing, which is really interesting because it's a physical projection of how we want our thoughts to move. So if
Mm-hmm.
body, let the thoughts move too. So that movement is indicative of let me move my thoughts and my emotions with this physical movement.
Yeah.
Being
Feeling in
intentional.
control. Yeah, and feeling in control as well, like thinking that you actually can take over by just like having action. You're not, nothing is desperate. Like you can always do something to get out of it.
Yeah. I also, there's something else that you said, which I think is really key, doing an inventory of our thoughts.
Mhm. Mhm.
Doing an inventory because most of the time we are unaware of what
Mm.
we're thinking. Most of the time. Unless we stop to notice,
Mm.
we're not noticing. And
Mhm.
then, any given person has about 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. Thousands of thoughts run through our minds,
Mm.
and we are not aware of those. If I said to anyone, well, list all the thoughts you've had for today,
Mm.
it's not going to end. It's not going to be 10,000. not even 10,000, you know, or 1,000. Can come, anybody come up with 1,000 thoughts at least? If we,
Hmm.
if science is saying that we have a minimum of 60,000 thoughts a day. So,
Yes.
hey, yeah. So we almost at the end of our show. Is there a quote that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
Yes. I listened just yesterday to a podcast, and because we're talking about, you talk a lot about self love and acceptance. I heard one that really resonated that said, love yourself, but don't be in love with yourself. And I love that notion of like loving yourself, accepting yourself, being non-judgmental with who you are, where you are. And I love this idea, but like not being like in love to yourself by not seeing where you need to progress. Because when you love yourself, you can say, I want to be a better version of myself. I can accept myself, I love myself, and I want to be better, and I want to like improve and just want to be a better person for myself and for others. There's just, I think, the tendency that we sometimes fall into in this world. It's, I think there's a lot of narcissism with
Mm.
like
Yeah.
falling in love with themselves, where it's just like, I'm perfect and I don't see like
Mm.
my imperfections. So loving yourself, love your imperfection, and try to get better. Um, I think that really resonated with me.
Yeah, that's powerful. Every time we want to say love yourself, for people that don't know how to love themselves, that's amazing. But people who love themselves too much or are in love with themselves, you know, the people that you don't know how to love themselves, basically saying, no, don't say that, because then it's going to be too much of narcissistic thinking here. And that's, where do you draw the line? But I like the way you put that. Love yourself, but don't be in love with yourself. Um, so, Astrid, thank you so much for your just your wisdom, for sharing with us on how you hack your thoughts, for leaving us with a few tips on doing it, and for the quote: "Love yourself, but don't be in love with yourself." So,
Thank
thank you for being on the show, and everyone out there. Like I always end our shows, your story is changing. You are the storyteller of your story. Your story are your thoughts. Your thoughts are your self talk, right? Who you're becoming are your thoughts. So, what you tell your brain is what your brain remembers. And here's what really matters: who you're becoming is greater than who you were before this moment. So, if you like what you're hearing, please go ahead and click at the bottom or drop it in the chat. Let's hear some ways that you hack your thoughts. Coming up next week, we have another great and exciting guest with a mind hacking conversation. Remember, powerful declarations inside of you are waiting to be manifested. So we will see you at our next episode. Take care.